The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace grounds as Catherine walked slowly through the rose garden. Her fingers traced the petals of the white roses that had always been her favorite. Today, everything felt different. The weight of the news she had received just hours ago pressed heavily on her chest. William found her there, standing among the flowers their children loved to play around. He approached quietly, his footsteps soft on the gravel path. When he reached her, he didn't speak immediately. Instead, he stood beside her, both of them looking out at the gardens that had been their sanctuary for so many years. "The doctors confirmed it this morning," Catherine said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. 6 months, maybe less. William's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. They had suspected this day would come, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that felt overwhelming. He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers as they had done countless times before. The diagnosis had come as a shock to everyone. Catherine had always been the picture of health and vitality. She was the woman who ran marathons for charity, who played tennis with their children, who seemed to have endless energy for her royal duties. But cancer doesn't discriminate, and it had found its way into their perfect life like an uninvited guest. "We need to tell the children," William said, his voice thick with emotion. "They deserve to know, but we need to find the right way." Catherine nodded, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. George, Charlotte, and Louise were still so young. How do you explain to children that their mother, their anchor, their constant source of love and laughter, was facing something that might take her away from them? They had agreed to keep the diagnosis private for now. The palace staff knew, of course, and their immediate family had been informed. But the public, the nation that adored Catherine, remained unaware of the storm brewing behind the palace walls. Over the next few weeks, Catherine threw herself into her royal duties with renewed passion. She visited children's hospitals, attended charity galas, and met with organizations close to her heart. To the outside world, she appeared as radiant as ever, but those closest to her could see the subtle changes. The way she lingered a little longer when hugging the children at public events. The extra moment she took to really look at people when she spoke with them. The careful way she memorized every detail of her interactions. William watched her with a mixture of admiration and heartbreak. His wife was facing the greatest battle of her life, yet she continued to serve others with grace and dignity. He found himself falling in love with her all over again, seeing her strength in a completely new light. The palace staff noticed changes, too. Catherine began spending more time in the kitchen with the cooks, learning family recipes she had never bothered with before. She asked detailed questions about the children's daily routines, writing everything down in a leather journal she carried everywhere. She spent hours with their nanny, discussing the children's personalities, their fears, their dreams, their little quirks that only a mother would notice. One evening, as they sat together in their private sitting room, Catherine pulled out a stack of letters. She had been writing to each of the children, letters for birthdays they might not be there to celebrate, for graduations, for weddings, for moments when they might need their mother's words of encouragement. "I want them to know how proud I am of them," she said, her pen moving steadily across the paper. "I want them to know that being their mother was the greatest privilege of my life." William read over her shoulder as she wrote to Charlotte. "My darling girl, by the time you read this, you will be graduating from university. I wish I could be there to see you in your cap and gown to take 1,000 photos like the embarrassing mother I always promised to be. But know that I am so incredibly proud of the woman you have become." The words blurred as William's eyes filled with tears. He excused himself and walked to the window, looking out at the London skyline. Somewhere out there, millions of people went about their daily lives, unaware that their beloved princess was preparing to say goodbye. Catherine continued writing late into the night. Letters for George's 18th birthday, for when he would one day take on more royal responsibilities. Letters for Louis, her baby, for when he learned to drive, for his first heartbreak, for his wedding day. She wrote about their family traditions, about the importance of kindness, about staying true to yourself even when the whole world is watching. As the weeks passed, Catherine and William began having conversations they had never imagined they would need to have. They talked about the children's education, about the charities Catherine supported, about the causes that mattered to her. William promised to keep her memory alive through their work, to ensure that her passion for helping others would continue long after she was gone. They also talked about his future, though it was the hardest conversation of all. Catherine wanted him to find love again, to not spend his life mourning her. She wanted their children to see him happy, to have someone who could love them and guide them when she no longer could. "Promise me you won't shut yourself away," she said one night as they lay in bed together. "Promise me you'll live, really live, even when I'm gone." William couldn't promise that, not yet. The thought of a future without her seemed impossible to imagine. But he knew she was right. For their children, for the crown, for the nation that would need him to be strong, he would have to find a way to move forward. The palace began making quiet preparations. Press statements were drafted but not released. Security protocols were reviewed. Plans were made for events that no one wanted to think about, but that had to be considered. Through it all, Catherine maintained her public schedule. She opened a new wing at a children's hospital, laughing with young patients and their families. She attended a gala for mental health awareness, giving a speech that moved the audience to tears with its passion and authenticity. She planted a tree in a community garden, her hands dirty with soil, her smile bright as she posed for photos with local volunteers. But privately, the goodbyes were beginning, small ones at first. She spent an entire afternoon with her horse, riding through the countryside she loved, knowing it might be one of the last times. She had tea with the palace staff, thanking them for years of service and loyalty. She visited her parents, sitting in the garden of her childhood home, talking about memories and making new ones to hold on to. The hardest goodbye was yet to come, the one that would break hearts across the nation and change everything forever. But for now, in these precious weeks, Catherine was determined to live every moment fully, to love deeply, and to prepare her family for a future she wouldn't be part of, but that she was determined to influence with every ounce of strength she had left. The decision came on a rainy Tuesday morning in late autumn. Catherine woke feeling weaker than she had in weeks, and the simple act of getting dressed left her exhausted. William found her sitting on the edge of their bed, staring out at the gray sky with a look of quiet acceptance. "It's time," she said simply, and he knew exactly what she meant. They had discussed this moment many times over the past month. Catherine had been adamant that she wanted to say goodbye to the nation on her own terms, while she still had the strength and clarity to speak from her heart. She didn't want the public to remember her as frail or broken. She wanted her final message to be one of hope and gratitude. The palace moved swiftly but carefully. Within hours, arrangements were made for a televised address. The location would be the same room where she and William had announced their engagement all those years ago. It seemed fitting somehow, bringing their public story full circle. Catherine spent the afternoon preparing. She chose a simple blue dress, William's favorite color on her, and the sapphire earrings that had belonged to his mother. Her makeup artist worked carefully to hide the signs of her illness, bringing back some of the radiance that had been slowly fading. When she looked in the mirror, she saw glimpses of the woman she had been, the woman the world remembered. The children were brought in to see her before the recording. George, now understanding more than his younger siblings, hugged her tightly and whispered that he loved her. Charlotte, always perceptive, seemed to sense the gravity of the moment and clung to her mother's hand. Little Louis, still too young to fully understand, simply snuggled into her lap, content to be close to the person who made him feel safest in the world. "Remember what we talked about," Catherine told them gently. "No matter what happens, we will always be a family. Love doesn't end, it just changes form." William walked with her to the recording room, their fingers intertwined one last time in public. The camera crew had been sworn to secrecy, and only the most trusted palace staff were present. Catherine took her place behind the polished wooden desk, the same spot where she had given so many addresses over the years. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes bright with unshed tears, but her voice steady and strong. "My dear friends across Britain and the Commonwealth," she began, "I come to you today with news that I had hoped never to share, but which I believe you deserve to hear from me personally." She paused, gathering her strength, then continued with remarkable composure. "Several months ago, I was diagnosed with an advanced form of cancer. Despite the best medical care and the love and support of my family, I have been told that my time with you is limited. I wanted to speak to you myself while I still can, to say the things that are most important to me." The words hung in the air, simple but devastating. Catherine continued, her voice growing stronger with each sentence. "First, I want to thank you. Thank you for welcoming a girl from Berkshire into your hearts and your royal family. Thank you for your patience as I learned my role, for your kindness when I made mistakes, and for your unwavering support through all the joys and challenges of these years." She spoke about her children, her voice softening with maternal love. "George, Charlotte, and Louis are my greatest achievement, not because of their titles or their place in the line of succession, but because they are kind, curious, and caring children who will grow up to make this world better. William and I have tried to give them as normal a childhood as possible, and I hope they will carry that sense of normalcy and humanity into their future roles." Catherine talked about the causes that had been closest to her heart throughout her royal career: early childhood development, mental health awareness, addiction recovery, and supporting families in crisis. She spoke with passion about the people she had met, the stories that had moved her, and the progress she had seen. "I have been privileged to meet some of the most remarkable people in our nation, parents who have overcome unimaginable challenges to give their children better lives, young people who have faced mental health struggles with incredible bravery, healthcare workers who dedicate their lives to caring for others, community volunteers who see a need and simply step forward to help." Her voice cracked slightly as she continued. "These people taught me what true nobility looks like. It isn't about titles or ceremonies. It's about showing up for each other, especially in the hardest moments. It's about using whatever platform or privilege you have to lift others up." Catherine then addressed her husband directly, looking into the camera as if she were speaking only to him. "William, my love, you have been my partner in everything. You have supported my dreams, shared my burdens, and given me a love story more beautiful than any fairy tale. I need you to know that being your wife has been the honor of my lifetime." She paused, visibly emotional but determined to continue. "I also need you to know that I am not afraid. I am sad to leave you and our children, but I am not afraid. We have loved each other well, and that love will endure beyond whatever comes next." The camera captured every nuance of her expression as she spoke about their future without her. "I want our children to remember me as I lived, not as I died. I want them to laugh when they think of me, to remember bedtime stories and baking disasters and the way we danced in the kitchen when no one was watching. I want them to know that their mother believed in them completely and that belief will never change." Catherine's message then turned to the nation as a whole. Britain has always been at its best when faced with challenges. You have shown time and again that in the darkest moments, you come together, you support each other, and you emerge stronger. I have seen this spirit in every corner of our kingdom, from the smallest villages to the largest cities. She spoke about the future of the monarchy, expressing her confidence in William and their children's ability to serve with dedication and humility. The royal family exists to serve you, and that service will continue. William will be a king worthy of your respect and admiration, just as he has been a husband worthy of my love. Our children will grow up understanding that their privilege comes with responsibility, and they will honor that responsibility. As she neared the end of her address, Catherine's composure began to show small cracks, but her determination never wavered. I want to leave you with this thought. We are all temporary visitors in each other's lives, but the love we share and the kindness we show can last forever. In your daily lives, please remember to tell the people you love how much they mean to you. Hold your children a little tighter. Call your parents a little more often. Check on your neighbors. Take care of each other. She smiled then, that warm, genuine smile that had endeared her to millions. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your lives. Thank you for the privilege of serving alongside you. And thank you for the love you have shown my family. It has meant everything to us. The recording ended with Catherine looking directly into the camera one last time, her eyes filled with love and gratitude rather than sadness. Within minutes of the broadcast, the world began to react. News networks across the globe picked up the story. Social media exploded with messages of love and support. Flowers began appearing outside palace gates, and people gathered in streets to share their grief and disbelief. But Catherine wasn't finished yet. There were still personal goodbyes to be said, final moments to be treasured, and a legacy to secure. The public farewell was just the beginning of the most difficult and beautiful goodbye in royal history. The response to Catherine's broadcast was unlike anything the royal family had ever experienced. Within hours, every palace gate was surrounded by flowers, photographs, letters, and people who simply needed to be close to the place where she lived. The outpouring of love came from every corner of the world, but it was the response from ordinary British families that touched Catherine's heart most deeply. Letters arrived by the thousands, many from children who had drawn pictures of her, or written in their careful handwriting about how she had inspired them. Cancer survivors shared their stories, offering hope and understanding. Mothers wrote about how Catherine's approach to parenting had influenced their own families. The messages weren't just expressions of sympathy, they were celebrations of a life that had touched millions. Catherine read as many letters as she could, often crying as she discovered how her work had affected individual lives. There was the letter from a young mother who had sought help for postpartum depression after hearing Catherine speak about mental health. A teenager wrote about finding the courage to talk about his anxiety because the royal family had made it okay to discuss such things. An elderly woman shared how Catherine's visits to her care home had been the highlight of her final years. "Did you know?" Catherine asked William one evening as they sat surrounded by letters. "Did you know we were making this much difference?" William shook his head, equally moved by the outpouring. They had always hoped their work mattered, but seeing the evidence of lives changed and hearts touched was overwhelming in the most beautiful way. As the days passed, Catherine's condition deteriorated, but her spirits remained strong. She was determined to use every moment she had left meaningfully. She recorded personal video messages for each of her children's future milestones. She spoke with the heads of her patronages, ensuring they understood her vision for continuing the work. She spent hours with William, talking through everything from practical matters to their most cherished memories. The hardest conversation came when they discussed her funeral. Catherine had specific wishes about how she wanted to be remembered and how the service should reflect her values rather than just royal protocol. "I want it to be about love, not loss," she told William. "I want music that makes people smile when they think of me. I want the service to include people from all the communities I've been honored to work with, not just dignitaries and officials." She chose hymns that had meaning to her personally, including one they had sung at their wedding. She requested that children from the schools she had supported should participate in the service. Most importantly, she asked that the focus be on continuing the work rather than mourning its end. "Promise me the foundation we discussed will happen," she said, referring to their plans for an organization that would combine all her areas of interest under one umbrella. "Promise me that my work won't die with me." William promised, knowing that creating something lasting from her legacy would be one of his most important responsibilities as both a husband and a future king. Catherine's final public appearance was unplanned and spontaneous. On a surprisingly warm day in late November, she felt well enough to walk in the palace gardens. Word somehow reached the crowds gathered outside, and they began singing "Amazing Grace," their voices carrying over the walls. Catherine asked the guards to open the gates. Against all protocol, she walked out to meet the people who had been keeping vigil for her. She was wearing a simple coat and had a scarf wrapped around her head, but her smile was radiant. For 30 minutes, she moved through the crowd, accepting flowers, hugging children, and thanking people for their love and support. "You don't need to be sad for me," she told an elderly woman who was crying. "I have lived a life filled with more love than anyone deserves. That's not something to mourn. It's something to celebrate." A photographer captured the moment when a little girl, no older than 5, handed Catherine a drawing of a rainbow. "My mummy says rainbows come after storms," the child said solemnly. Catherine knelt down, despite the effort it cost her, and hugged the little girl tightly. "Your mummy is very wise," Catherine whispered, "and you are very special for sharing your rainbow with me." The photo of that moment would later become one of the most iconic images of Catherine's life, symbolizing hope and innocence in the face of loss. That evening, surrounded by her family, Catherine felt a profound sense of peace. She had said everything she needed to say, done everything she could do, and loved as fully as one person possibly could. William lay beside her, holding her hand as he had every night for weeks. "Tell me about our first date again," she whispered, her voice barely audible. William smiled through his tears and began the story she never tired of hearing, about how nervous he had been, how she had laughed at his terrible jokes, how he had known even then that she was extraordinary. He talked about their engagement, their wedding day, the births of their children, and all the small moments in between that had made up their life together. Catherine closed her eyes and listened, a small smile on her lips. She was thinking about all the goodbyes she had said and all the love that would continue even after she was gone. She thought about her children and the letters waiting for them. She thought about William and his promise to live fully. She thought about the foundation that would carry her work forward and the lives that would be touched by it. As William's voice grew soft and the room filled with the quiet presence of their sleeping children, Catherine felt herself letting go. She wasn't leaving. She was transitioning into something different, something that would live on in every life she had touched and every heart that would remember her. The announcement came the next morning, delivered with the same dignity Catherine had shown throughout her illness. The nation woke to the news that their beloved princess had passed peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by love. The world mourned, but it was a different kind of mourning than anyone expected. Instead of anger at the unfairness of her early death, there was gratitude for the life she had lived. Instead of despair at the loss, there was determination to honor her legacy. The goodbye that had begun with her brave broadcast had become something more powerful than anyone could have imagined. Catherine's funeral became a celebration that brought together people from every walk of life. World leaders sat beside community volunteers. Children from the schools she had supported sang alongside professional choirs. The service was broadcast globally, but it felt intimately personal to everyone who watched. William's eulogy was simple and heartfelt. He spoke about Catherine not as a princess or a future queen, but as a wife, a mother, and a woman who had made the world brighter simply by being in it. He announced the creation of the Catherine Foundation, which would continue her work in early childhood development, mental health, and community support. Catherine believed that everyone has the power to make a difference, he said, his voice steady despite his grief. She proved that kindness is not weakness, that vulnerability is not failure, and that love really can change the world. Her goodbye was not an ending. It was an invitation for all of us to live more fully, love more deeply, and serve more faithfully. In the months that followed, Catherine's influence continued to grow. The foundation flourished, supported by donations from around the world. Mental health conversations became more open and honest. Parents across Britain and beyond thought more carefully about their children's early years. Communities came together to support their most vulnerable members. The rainbow drawing that the little girl had given Catherine was displayed in a place of honor in the Foundation's headquarters, a reminder that after every storm, beauty and hope return. Catherine's goodbye had indeed touched the nation, but more than that, it had changed it. Her children grew up knowing they were deeply loved, not just by their parents, but by an entire nation that would forever remember their mother's grace, courage, and unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. And William, true to his promise, found ways to live fully while honoring her memory, showing their children that love endures and that the best goodbye is the one that inspires others to live better lives. Catherine's story became a testament to the power of authentic love, graceful courage, and the profound impact one life can have when lived with purpose and dedication. Her goodbye touched the nation because it wasn't really a goodbye at all. It was a transformation of love into legacy, of presence into lasting influence, of one beautiful life into countless others inspired to be better.